So Christopher Columbus set sail, ironically from Portugal, from the port of Lisbon. But he makes his way across the Atlantic Ocean with the thought that he's eventually going to wind up on the Asian mainland. And over the course of several weeks, he actually sees land and makes landfall in what is present day the Bahamas. Well, he thinks that he made some sort of landfall in the East Indies. He thinks this has got to be somewhere Japan, China, maybe somewhere in Asia. Maybe perhaps India itself. He thought he might have landed there. And when he encountered some of the local natives, he referred to them as Indians because he thought he had made it to the East Indies. That's why to this day, Native Americans had oftentimes been referred to as Indians. Indians are people from India, okay? Native Americans are just that. Now, it is possible to refer to Native Americans as Amerindians, okay, so as to maybe merge the Indian mindset of Columbus with the American recognition, I can't say that today, recognition, to recognize Native Americans, Amerindians, okay? So, generally speaking, that's where the term Indian comes from. So, he reports back to Spain and then is told to go back and circumnavigate other different areas and encounter various different parts of the Caribbean and northern parts of South America and whatnot. And his successes and his reports back spur further growth. And there are other Spanish navigators who are also ordered to go out and about and explore. And then, of course, this leads others from other countries, like Portugal, for example, to also explore. What might be here? Did we just uncover something completely new? We thought we had found Asia, but by the second time Christopher Columbus had actually reported back and rediscovered this place, he realized it was a whole different landmass than Asia. And he uncovered the idea that this is a whole new continent. And there were other Europeans who, upon hearing about these explorations, that also wanted to go further into it. One of which was an Italian scientist named Amerigo Vespucci. He recognized that the land in between where Christopher Columbus had landed actually was in fact a new continent. So if you ever wonder where the name America comes from, it's in honor and recognition of Amerigo Vespucci, who determined that North America was in fact a continent. Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci, Okay, so with that, you have other European explorers also make their mark, largely Spaniards. So you have fleets and fleets of Spaniards that are now sent to go circumnavigate across, including Ferdinand Magellan, who circumnavigated the globe from 1519 to 1522, including going through a various different strait on the southern tip of South America, now known as the Strait of Magellan. And he would go all the way up the Pacific coast, all the way to modern-day Oregon. So you have all kinds of different explorations going on. You have all kinds of different investments by the Spanish monarchy to ensure that, well, Spain discovered this. We're going to claim most of it outside of modern-day Brazil, which would be claimed by the Portuguese. One of the most infamous Spanish conquistadors was Hernán Cortés, who eventually made his way from Spain with a Spanish force and discovered a major civilization in the Central Valley of Mexico, the Aztecs. Okay. The Spaniards at this time were hell-bent on finding three different things. Converts, they wanted to convert people to Christianity, and because of which they were eager to incorporate any newcomer into Hispanic society and Hispanicize converts. So that's the God piece. Gold, they heard all these stories about all this gold, perhaps, that could be found all throughout this new continent. Well, this new civilization supposedly had gold. And when Spanish explorers would report back to Spain, oftentimes they would exaggerate some of the things that they saw. For example, one Spanish explorer reported back to the king and queen and reported that his interactions with the Mesoamericans were so bountiful that they treated him like a god, and they ate on plates of gold every day, and they never used it more than once, those plates. Think about that. You're eating on a plate. Your food is on a plate that's gold. And you're only going to use it once? You have that much gold? Are you kidding me? Oh my. Yeah. Those would be corn tortillas. Yeah, you have a lot of corn in the Central Valley of Mexico. Kind of goldish in color-ish. Okay? Masa. Yeah, all right. So, from that standpoint, yeah, you're eating on plates of gold. So, you report back to the king and queen, oftentimes to embellish your story so as to get more funding so you can go back and maybe re-explore different things. Okay? There's several different things come into play, and other Spanish explorers would make their way all across various different parts of the modern-day United States. So, for example, De Soto, not the city in south of Dallas, by the way, explored basically what is present day the southeastern United States. Francisco Coronado explored the Central Valley of Mexico up all the way up into basically southwest United States currently today. You have Francisco Pizarro, there you go, who explored the Incan Empire in South America. So you have an age of exploration. Coming back to Hernán Cortés, he encountered the ultra-civilized tribe, the Aztecs, in the Central Valley of Mexico. Now, the Aztecs believe in a god Quetzalcoatl, who would eventually come and visit them in human-like form, and it was believed that he would have this white kind of angelic presence. They didn't quite know what to expect. They just knew that Quetzalcoatl would come visit them. Well, upon first encountering Hernán Cortés, this pasty white Spaniard, they initially believed this white figure in armor is Quetzalcoatl. We're going to bow down to him. Oh boy. Okay. They welcome him with open arms. Here, Quetzalcoatl. And so Cortés is like, okay. Some things happen and they come to understand, well, this guy probably is Quetzalcoatl. So long story short, eventually Cortés realizes these people, they have all kinds of resources. They have all kinds of things that we want. Let's take over the stuff that they have and convert them, and let's build an empire here. And he comes into conflict with the Aztecs, who eventually beat him back a little bit, back into the Mexican countryside. However, I mentioned a story in a prior video about how the Aztecs had a lot of enemies. There were quite a number of neighboring tribes who really disliked the Aztecs for their brutal tactics. And they didn't really know who these pasty Spaniards were, but they figured, okay, they want to do something to the Aztecs. They want to take over the Aztecs. I might want to help them. The enemy of my enemy is a friend of mine type aspect comes into play here. And so you've got neighboring tribes who regroup with the Spaniards, who have technology, rifles, armor. They have horses, mobility, cavalry. and they have an ally. And eventually they go back into Tenochtitlan. They overtake the city and eventually conquer Tenochtitlan, and they claim the Aztec capital and therefore its empire for Spain. Okay, so other things that led to the Aztecs being conquered by Cortés. Part of it was an exposure to European diseases that the Spaniards brought, of which Mesoamericans had no immunity. Okay, so think about various different diseases like the common cold, or you may have had chicken pox at one time or anything else of the sort. We have vaccines to help prevent from stuff like that now, but sometimes you might get sick, but your body builds immunity to it. You might even be exposed to something. Heck, you might even be exposed to coronavirus and not show any effects. Who knows? Okay. Otherwise, though, you might be okay as you build up an immunity. Native Americans don't have an immunity to European diseases. If you catch something like smallpox, for example, that's virtually a death sentence. So that also comes into play to kind of decimate the Aztec population to an extent. So the idea of Cortés was that he was going to conquer the Aztecs and now Hispanicize them, put them to work. Quick note on the word Hispanic. Technically, the word Hispanic, its root is Hispania, which is the Roman name for the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spanishized to España. Okay? The term Hispanic technically means somebody of Spanish or Spanish origin. Somebody from Spain or Spanish origin. That's what the term Hispanic technically means. Nowadays, it is meant to incorporate those who are a part of Hispanic culture altogether. Those in Latin America who speak Spanish may observe Spanish culture and customs, language, Catholic faith, all kinds of different things. Foodstuffs, which can vary from region to region all across the Americas. Generally speaking, though, Hispanic culture has been broadened to incorporate more than just people from Spain or of Spanish origin. Okay? That's why it's a very broad term. I'm Hispanic. I consider myself Hispanic. I agree with that term. There are other Hispanics who want to be more recognized. Latino. Well, the term Latin actually comes from Europe, but okay. And then there are other names that people have for themselves. Mestizo. You'll see it. And then, of course, there's more than just Mexicans. You know, my grandparents were Mexicans. There's more than Mexicans. There's Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, various different South Americans. There's all kinds. So the Hispanic community is very broad, but it has to start somewhere, and it started with Spain. Okay, so the Spanish Empire had an idea. Okay, they conquered the Aztecs, conquered Tenochtitlan. They're going to branch out because now they also conquered the Incan Empire in South America. And they have the idea that they are going to explore all of these new lands. They are going to convert as many of these natives as possible. So they will subjugate them, Hispanicize them, but otherwise incorporate them into Hispanic culture and society. That's different than some of the other Europeans that are going to come to North America, of which we'll talk, because they have different ideas when it comes to natives. The Spaniards, they wanted to incorporate these new people they've encountered, claim them as Christians, Christianize them, Hispanicize them, and then put them to work. Okay? Otherwise, though, Spain is now going to have to set up various different colonies. In order to truly Christianize them, they're going to have to set up various different missions and a missionary network to where they will set up various different outposts to where natives all throughout the Spanish Empire in North America can come to meet with priests and learn about the word of Jesus Christ and become Catholic, and they can renounce their old pagan religions. Okay. So, the Spanish Inquisition, which was fervent in Spain itself, now makes its way to the New World. You have more and more converts. You have all kinds of different things going on. The very first European establishment in what we know as North America was in St. Augustine, Florida. Okay? That was the first Spanish outpost in the present-day United States. Okay? So, St. Augustine, Florida, you have the first settlement, and a few decades later, you have the the second settlement in what is now the United States, and that is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You'll probably want to know that for your exam. The first, St. Augustine, Florida. The second, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Okay? So, the American Southwest largely had been occupied by the sedentary desert tribes, the Navajo, the Pueblo peoples, the Hopi, Sunnis, and the Spaniards encountered these folks and oftentimes treated them quite harshly in their efforts for a forceful conversion rather. Okay, and so one thing that they recognized about the terrain in various different parts of North America was that it was reasonably similar to central Spain. Spain is where you have the origins of modern day ranching, cattle raising, horses, cows, sheep, all kinds of different things that you'll find on an everyday ranch. Well, the American Southwest, including Texas, by the way, is ideally suited for that sort of industry. The Spaniards would now bring that sort of aspect to the American Southwest. They recognized the territory, and that was another reason that they wanted to incorporate this territory into their empire. So you have the American Southwest, you have Florida, central Mexico and on upwards. Okay, you have all these Spanish soldiers coming in to man different forts that now have to be built to protect various different assets that are now incorporated. Well, if you're a Spanish soldier, you're a human being with various different human needs. Okay. And you're often encouraged to marry. Well, with a severe lack of Spanish women in the New World at this point, where's your only opportunity to marry? You might marry a native girl. Okay? So what you start to see during this era in the 15, 16, and 1700s is the beginning of the interracial mixing of Spaniards with Native American women. And you create mestizo culture. That is a culture of people that are half European Spaniards and half Amerindian, New World. And you look at Mexico. Mexico is a veritable society of mestizos, where they're not truly 100% Native American or Amerindian or Mesoamerican, and they're not 100% European either. They're a mix of both, some more than others in some aspects. Me in particular, my DNA that I've done through 23andMe and whatnot, I'm largely Iberian, I'm Spaniard, but I'm a New World Spaniard because I have a sizable chunk of Amerindian in me. Okay? I just have maybe a little bit less than a lot of other quote-unquote Mexican Americans. But otherwise, though, you start to see a growth in population of mestizo culture that would now affect Hispanic society in Latin America that exists to this day.